Right. Okay. Let's get to it. It is now 4 minutes. 4 minutes past 10 on the 1st of May, 2025. The first series of elections for government, the new government, the Labour government. The first series of elections for Kemi Badenoch as Conservative leader. The first series of nationwide English elections for a party that is polling 25% in the opinion polls. These are not normal times. The most popular party in the country is on 25%. Third place is 22%. And what do you expect is going to happen in local elections? My name is Ben Walker. I am the co-founder of Britain Elects. Thank you very much for joining us. What I'm going to do tonight is just very quickly go through what's up, what to watch out for, what rumours we've been hearing, what might happen in the course of this evening, and there's quite a lot. I'm not currently at my own home. I'm couch surfing, so to speak, so I'm streaming from someone else's house, but I'm very lucky to have lovely people in my life, I suppose. I'm waiting for the solicitors to get me a new house. But anyway, right, okay. Thank you very much for joining us. Look, the polls are closed. These are not the biggest elections going, right? 1,600 seats may sound like a lot, and it is. It is. I know it's going to be a lot because I'm going to be putting them in spreadsheets later in the evening. But compared to 2023, it's not much. 2023 saw 6,000, sorry. 2024 saw about 3,000, and this year's is only 1,600. But it's 11 million voters. 11 million people had the right to cast a ballot in the elections just gone. That's the mayoral contest, that's the county council elections, that's the parliamentary by-election in Runcorn and Helsby. And do you think 11 million votes will be cast? No. I think turnout will be pretty low. I think that's par for the course for a local election. Normally in local elections, turnout hovers around 1 in 3. Anything lower than that, then you know you're having a bad time. And we know, since the Labour government came in, turnout in council by-elections has been pretty poor stuff. You've had council by-elections, big swings away from the government, big swings away from the Tories and Labour on turnouts of, 20%. Something's been going on there. The people who want to turn out are the angriest right now. What that might mean in Runcorn and Helsby, what that might mean in Lincolnshire, what that might mean in the west of England, where it seems the Greens may be in with a shout of taking the mayoralty of Bristol, Bath and, Somerset and surrounds. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting indeed. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Ben Walker, like I say. A lot to get through with, actually. I hope the quality is good. I'm streaming from internet I don't actually trust, to tell you the truth. But anyway, right. Let's do the situation as it stands. Here is where the polls stand today. The most popular party in the country, as I said at the start, is on 25%. That's up 22 points on where they were before. That's Reform. Okay, we all know that. That's not new. Reform is polling ahead. Reform is polling ahead of Labour, who are currently on 24% in the opinion polls. They are down 11 points. 11 points on where we were in 2021. 2021 was the local elections where the vaccine was being rolled out, where the Brexit deal had been struck, just, Christmas of 2020, remember that? And voters generally were desperate for a return to normalcy. So what happened? A rally around the flag effect, support for the incumbents. And the Tories on the May local elections of 2021 were on 42%. Now they're on 22%, a quite dramatic 20-point drop. But the government of the day is also down. They're on 24%, which is down 11 points. Okay? Lib Dems are up 7 points on 14%, and the Greens are up 4 on 9%. That is where the national picture, that is what the national picture looks like for elections held today that were last held 4 years ago. No, 4 years ago? Yes, 4 years ago. My goodness me, that's when we debuted this wonderful, wonderful map, which we're going to talk about over here. So, let's talk about Runcorn and Helsby first before we talk about the rest of the County Council contest, not least because I live around the corner from it. Runcorn and Helsby is a Labour defence. We are likely to get the result for Runcorn and Helsby in the early hours of Friday morning at around 2, 3, 4 a.m, depending on how many recounts. We don't really know how tight it is. Well, I do actually have some rumour mongering for you that I will disseminate soon, but this is a Labour defence. Labour won this in 2024, last year, not even a year ago, with 53% of the vote. Reform came a pretty, tight second with 18%, Tories 16, Greens saving their deposit on 6, and the Lib Dems also just saving their deposit on 5. Pretty interesting stuff. What do you expect is going to happen now? Well, let's go back to Runcorn and Helsby. Let's look at this page. So it was a pretty safe Labour seat, not the 16th safest, as some people in Reform are putting out, but more like the 48th, 49th safest. And if an election was held now, according to the Britain Predicts model, which did a lot better, quite better, than most other forecasters, here is what the numbers would be. Reform, 35%, Labour, 36%, and the Conservatives, 11%. Labour is down that by, 53, 43? Not even 20 points, but they're down by around about 15, 16, something. They're down by something in the teens, I suppose, because I can't do the quick maths in my head. Reform have almost, however, doubled where they were just last year. That's what the opinion polls, that's what the Britain Predicts model is telling us right now. Doubling where they were, up on 35%. 36 to 35 is nothing to write home about. Not at all, okay? That's a 1 point difference. If you apply a normal turnout expectation on a by-election like Runcorn and Helsby, if you consider the fact that it's competitive, i.e. more than one party is giving it serious campaigning energy, then this is a gap between Labour and Reform of 300 to 400 votes. You can't be confident about that at all. But that is what the Britain Predicts model is saying right now. 300 vote margin for Labour, with around about, a few thousand for the Greens, a few thousand for the Lib Dems, and the other parties, well, maybe this is where the model falls flat, because how many independent candidates are standing? Quite a lot. But anyway, this is what is likely to come at 2 to 3 to 4 a.m. Later this evening. I do have saved somewhere a number of notes, comments I've had from activists on the ground in Runcorn and Helsby. One Reform activist got in touch to say, we were told to do the Palace Fields estate. This is a quote. Most of the streets we went to over 50% of the houses. The people who answered the door were full on Reform, really no love for Labour. Now, where's the Palace Field estate in Runcorn? I'm going to see if I can bring it up here. There it is. There's the Palace Field estate in the Runcorn and Helsby constituency. Now, the Britain Predicts model, which puts, let's go back here, Labour ahead by 1 point. If you break it down by ward, you would find Reform sweeping the bits around Runcorn proper, so Runcorn Heath, Weston, Grange, Astmore, Dukesfield, Western Point, these would vote Reform today. It's when you move over to Murdershaw, Norton, Sandymore, Daresbury, or is it Daresbury, that's where you find Labour just about edging ahead. And so to get a comment, to get some insight from a Reform activist saying we were told to do the Palace Fields estate, most of the streets we went to over 50% of the houses. The people who answered the door were full on Reform, really no love for Labour. I think that's about as expected if you trust the model, if you trust what the model is saying right now. I then had an activist from Labour get in touch, and they were giving some love to the Cheshire villages. Now, just for those unaware, Runcorn and Helsby is two constituencies as one in essence. You have Runcorn proper, which is 2/3 of the constituency. The electors that live in Runcorn, in the Halton borough area, are 2/3 of the seat, and the remaining third are in Frodsham, are in Helsby, are in Elton, are in Mickle Trafford, and Guildon Sutton, and the other villages, Molesworth, so on and so forth. That is 1/3 of the seat, and it seems as though Labour has been putting in a lot of effort in that 1/3 of the seat. So here's what I heard from a Labour activist who was canvassing in the Cheshire villages. Nice sunny day in the villages, pushing to squeeze the anti-reform vote. We are getting the vote out, and it's so far holding of what we had known on people. I hope that makes sense to everyone watching. Rural Tories staying with the Tories in some parts. What this Labour activist is getting at here is that Labour, it seems, are going into these villages, going into these areas, and saying to possible Conservatives, people who, frankly, look, Mickle Trafford, Guildon Sutton, these are affluent parts of Cheshire, okay? The people who vote here tend to vote Conservative in council elections. Not always. For Labour to go here suggests one thing. Labour are targeting Tory voters. They think affluent Tories will come their way to stop reform. They think if they squeeze the Tory vote enough, it will be enough to get them ahead of reform. Whether that bears out in reality, don't know. But it seems to be that's what the strategy is. So what we had is one reform activist get in touch to say they were doing a part of Runcorn that seemed to validate what the Britain Predicts model is saying. And then we had a Labour activist get in touch to say they're going for these Tory areas, trying to squeeze Tory votes to stop reform. We will find out whether that bears out in reality in a few hours' time. But I also got a reform activist to get in touch after he did his canvass, and he said there is a lot. Let me just see if I can get it up here. Everyone is just so disillusioned. I don't think Reform are winning this. Decent second, not a strong second. Turnout will be very, very low. Interesting. That's from one of the Reform activists who was on the ground in Runcorn today. So that's Runcorn and Helsby. That will be due between 2 to 4 a.m. later this evening. But we have the rest of England to consider. Although I do apologise, there is one little tiny portion of Wales going to the polls today, and that is in Bridgend, in Pyle, Kenfig Hill and Cefn Criver. I can't pronounce Welsh particularly well. But it's a Labour defence with a Reform upset expected, I think. That's the only part of Wales going to the polls today. The rest of them is Shire England. So when you look at this map of England, you see the big cities. But when you zoom in, the big cities aren't going to the polls. Derby and Nottingham are not going to the polls. Leicester is not going to the polls, with the exception of these little suburbs on the outskirts. Basically, what is Leicester is how it used to be. But, sprawl, spread means Oadby is losing its identity a little bit. Wigston is losing its identity a bit. But anyway, the boundaries haven't been changed yet. What you're having up in this year's council contests are the Shire elections. I call it Shire England. These are the parts of the world that normally lean Tory. What you're seeing here is how it voted in 2021. This is perhaps in here. Chipping Norton is probably perhaps the biggest geographically Labour ward in the country right now. For the elections up today, you can just see it from space, can't you? Meanwhile, Tory seats are almost always vast, aren't they? These areas lean Tory heavily. They went Tory by a wide margin in 2021. Frankly, what you're looking at here is what, put bluntly, this is how the country voted, both in 2021 in the May local elections after the vaccine rollout, the return to normalcy. But it's also likely how the country voted in the 2019 general election. So these numbers here, what happened in 21 was a virtual repeat of 19, the Get Brexit Done election. Virtually nothing had changed, the famous Theresa May quote. Nothing had changed in 21. But I think, ladies and gentlemen, let's just go back to those polls. I think everything is about to change. I think a reign of chaos should be heralded today, because those national numbers do not suggest hundreds, serious concentrations of councillors in every single, there's going to be no rotten boroughs anymore, so to speak, in which, a council is dominated by just one party. And this is what the forecasters say. This is what the Britain Elect's New Statesman model, the BENS, the Benz model. Yep, I have a lot of time on my hands. This is what the Britain Elect's New Statesman model has to say for today's local elections. The Conservatives, who won the vast majority of seats at the last election in 2021, are on course to lose more than half of them. Labour are expected, surprisingly, I grant you, very surprisingly, I'll go on to it in a minute. Labour are expected to pick up and make net gains of 72 to sit at 334 seats. Two things you need to bear in mind here. Boundary changes. The number of councillors in some Labour-friendly parts have been cut. Durham had some serious boundary changes. They've, I think, frankly, been not halved, but cut by a few dozen. Okay. So what we've done here, and you can see it in the postscript, if you ever read this, go to newstatesman.com to read all these pieces. I've tried to calculate the notional results on these new boundaries. Okay, so when you compare it to Wikipedia, you're not going to get the same numbers. All right. But anyway, Labour's expected to win 334 council seats this evening, which is up notionally 72. Theoretically, it's possible. Theoretically, it's very possible. The Tories are down 20. Labour are down 11. On a simple two-party swing, that should be an advantage to Labour. But then again, you have Reform up 22, Lib Dems up 7, and the Greens up 4. These are not normal times. I think I've said that so many times in so many of my pieces. Any of you actually read me. I'm boring myself now. These are not normal times. These abnormal times are normal now. The Lib Dems are expected to win 104 more seats than they got last time, up to 314 council seats. Lib Dems need to show that they are in the parts of England where they won parliamentary seats, such as Oxfordshire, such as Hertfordshire, such as Buckinghamshire, and so on and so forth. They need to be backing those wins up with councillors. Otherwise, similar to Labour MPs in parts of Norfolk, even though Norfolk's not up, it's just a Labour MP or a Lib Dem MP and their organiser. And there's no other backing, is there? And that's a problem. If you don't have local government a base, if you don't have a local government base, you are not going to advance to future, you're not going to repeat your parliamentary success. UKIP learned this. They thought, if we win enough councillors in Boston, we can take Boston. And they started to win councillors in Boston, but it wasn't enough for them. Reform have tacked onto this. The Lib Dems have a history with this, and Labour needs to show that if it has any aspiration of representing any corner of rural England again. They need to be showing some council seat wins this evening. Reform are on course to come from nowhere. Let's be frank, Reform are the star of the show. They are the party without which are causing a great deal of chaos right now. Reform are on course to pick up 311 seats from a standing start. That means a lot of... Frankly, it means chaos in some local authorities. We will do a drill down of the local authorities in a minute. But there's a lot to talk about there. Other parties, i.e. independent, smaller parties, they are on 109. There's going to be no bonfire over the independents, as some journalists have predicted. No. This is 109. They won 110 before, 109 now. And a lot of that has to do with Reform coming out of nowhere. Independent people who go for independent candidates tend to be, let's be honest, they like their local lad. They like to be a bit anti-establishment. That's a Reform voter. That's an anti-establishment voter. That's a Green voter. That is a anti-system voter. That's an independent candidate for you, or localist groups, And I put it to you that there's going to be no bonfire of independent candidates tonight, but you'll see a differential mix. So in parts of Durham, for example, you could see Reform picking up independent seats. But in parts of Lancashire, you could see Labour losing seats, particularly in Muslim-heavy areas, to independent candidates. Independents could do particularly well in, yes, Lancashire, as I said, and Broxtowe. Thank you very much to Marcus. If you want to join the conversation, if you want to comment on this stream, you can do so going to twitter.com/BritainElects, clicking on the stream and joining the conversation there. Or, if you're not a fan of Elon Musk, which makes the vast majority of the country, you can go to youtube.com/@YouTube. No, not at YouTube, at BritainElects, and you can join the conversation there. You, of course, need a Google account to comment. The Greens, to finish up, are expected to pick up a healthy dozen, and a bit more than that. And I've had a few Greens coming in to tell me this is absolute rubbish. They're going to win hundreds more. Not hundreds more, but a bigger number than that. Let's see. But what I've done here is I've relied on my Britain Elects model, and I've published my Britain Elects model. I haven't put a finger on the figures. I've just seen it, said it, sorted it. I've just published it. Okay. This is predicated on low turnout. It's predicated on the fact Reform are picking up a lot of non-voters, which adds to the unreliability of things. Let's just go back to Runcorn and Helsby. Okay, again, a lot of this is down to Reform turning out non-voters and Labour losing a lot of voters to apathy. Okay, that's what the national polls are telling us right now. Okay, interesting stuff indeed. What will this mean? Where is it? Where did I put the results? Right, if you want to go get the results when they come in, you can do so by going to newstatesman.com and look for live results. 2025 English local elections. It's on the New Statesman page, and it features the famous map. There are currently no results on the map right now, as you can see here. There are two versions of the map, so to speak. There's one, of course, for desktop view and one for mobile view. Oh, what happened there? Are we still streaming? Yeah, I think we are. I think we're just still streaming there as well. Something very weird happened there with the wiring, I think. But anyway, yes. This is interesting. There are two versions of this map because the way we do... let me just see if I can illustrate this for you. The way we do tooltips on these maps is when you click on it on desktop, it appears on the top right-hand corner. And when you click on it on mobile, and you have to click on the mobile link, it'll take up the full width of the screen. Okay, so just bear that in mind. I think I've just about... I don't know what's happened there. Something ruined. Something broke the screen, I think. But anyway, there's no results right now. What are we expecting? What are we likely to get in a few hours' time? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It will be a very quiet election night, but it's going to be a very busy election results day on Friday, because the number of councils counting on Thursday night are few and far between. So let's just recap what's up. Much of Shire England, and the councils that will be counting tonight are Northumberland. Was one of the first wards to declare, and it was actually a Tory gain from Labour. This one, Kitty Brewster division. It's a new division, and boundaries have changed. But what happened in 2021 was this was the first ward to declare, and it was a Tory gain from Labour. Very interesting indeed. And it's going to be the first authority to count tonight. But what's going to happen as well is in places like Lincolnshire, is you're going to have parts of Lincolnshire counting overnight, including Boston. So look at this one. Boston West is one such example. It's looks like a relatively comfortable Tory seat on paper, 43% Conservative, with some notable independent groups and smaller parties, but no Reform candidate. And notice this. UKIP in 2013. Tory since. How do we expect that's going to declare later this evening? You look at another part, Boston North. That's a new division as in 2017, so we don't know how it voted in 2013. What about Boston? What about where else? Boston West, Boston North. Yeah. Fishtoft, Boston Coastal. That went UKIP in 2013. Is there any much going on there? No, actually, not much there. What about Skegness? If we go up to Skegness, history there. Skegness North has a notable independent group. but went UKIP in 2013. What about Boston-Skegness South? Yeah, again, that also went UKIP in 2013. What are we going to expect here? Because these are one of the first councils to close. One of the first councils to what's the word? Where are we here? One of the first councils to count. Okay, so half of Lincolnshire are going to be counting later this evening. So that's Boston, that's South Holland, which is Spalding, and I think maybe one of the Lindsays, which is East Lindsey or West Lindsey. That's the northern portion of Lincolnshire here. And they're pretty reform-friendly areas. So you have Northumberland, which is... it'll be interesting to see how reform does. Maybe some opportunity for the Greens to expand themselves there. Lib Dems as well. Very interesting. And you're also going to face some counts from parts of Staffordshire. So Lichfield, maybe early in the evening to declare. Very conservative, based on, new divisions, I grant you. But the notional results put them as conservative. Lichfield City North was Labour in 2013. If we go to Tamworth, now represented by a Labour MP, you look at all of these divisions, it's all very conservative, isn't it? Watling Division, Wilnecote Division, Lichfield Rural South, which stretches all the way into parts of Tamworth. All of these voted Conservative at the last election. How are they going to vote this time? It's going to be very interesting indeed. Labour needs to show some level of strength if they want to hold on to Tamworth, if they want to hold on to Lichfield. I think they won Lichfield, didn't they, at the general election? Yes, Michael Fabricant got defeated. So we're going to be seeing those parts of the world come first for county council elections, but that's not all. So we have Runcorn and Helsby coming, the parliamentary by-election here, which I think is the one a lot of us will be paying the most attention to. And then we also have this large geographical mass here, which is called the West of England, the mayoralty. And this is how it voted, first preferences, in 2021. Look at that. Labour, 33%, Conservatives, 29%, Greens, 22%. And it seems as though the Greens may be on course to win this, according to one opinion poll. One opinion poll put them, 3 points ahead, 4 points ahead, and another opinion poll put them 3 points behind, 4 points behind. Not very helpful, that indeed. But the general gist of it was, let's just go back up to that famous chart that I really want to be promoting to you tonight. It very much looked like this. The winning party getting a quarter of the vote, second place party getting a few points below that, and the fifth place party being on 10, 11, 15 something percent. This is our new normal. First past the post, eat your heart out. There is no mandate for anybody here, is there? So that's what we might expect in the West of England. And because the Conservatives, in their esteemed, their great wisdom, decided to dissolve the second preference vote in mayoral contests like these, you could be a party and you could win with 20% of the vote tonight. And 80% could effectively vote against you, but that doesn't matter. Before the Conservatives changed the system, there would have been a second vote, a supplementary vote, reallocated from the other parties to the top two, and one of the top two would have won. That's not going to happen tonight in the West of England. That's not going to happen tonight in Lincolnshire. If it did, I suspect Reform would lose, because it is not. I think Reform will win. If it didn't, if the system existed, I suspect in Kingston upon Hull and East Yorkshire, in essence, one poll put Reform on course to win this. Nigel Farage said in an interview on Sky News the other day that he expects to win this, Hull and East Yorkshire. On first past the post, they will. But with a supplementary vote, with the mandate that you must get 50% plus one, do you think Reform would win places like the here? Maybe, but maybe not. It's not as much a guarantee as it is with first past the post. Because the, what would you call it? If you want to call it uni-party, because the two main parties are so split, because smaller parties have a presence, really, and because Reform are the angry voice that are turning out quite a lot of new supporters, they are far ahead. Well, ahead enough in enough parts of the world to make a big splash this evening. So who's counting tonight? The West of England, which will come in. That's Somerset, parts of Somerset, sorry, Bath, Bristol, South Gloucestershire, Thornbury, Yate, Kingswood and others. Currently, at the last election, it voted Labour. It could vote Labour again, but it seems as though Labour are in trouble, not least because the incumbent mayor, who is standing down, is in a spot of bother, arrested for some allegations of indecent things. So, yes, it is going to be a potentially quiet evening indeed. And it seems as though we have a few questions to maybe go through here. So, Jack asked, why have Labour kept first past the post for mayoral elections? It is completely indefensible. Yeah, I think I can sympathise with that. I completely agree with that, actually. We're getting a devolution deal in Cheshire West. It'll be Cheshire and Warrington. That will be, well, it is most of Warrington's Cheshire anyway. So it's frankly just Cheshire. So there's going to be a devolution deal for Cheshire. And I've been asking on multiple occasions, are we going to get the supplementary vote included? And it seems as though the indication is it's not definitely coming, but it's not definitely not coming either. It seems as though things are up in the air. Bills need to move their way through the Commons first. Mr. Bobo asks, Ben, are you drinking anything tonight? No, unfortunately not. To be honest with you, I was going to start the streamer much earlier, go and make myself a drink, but didn't have enough time. I'm not exactly as organised as I hope. Michael asks, when will we get the first result and when Runcorn? Runcorn should come between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. My model suggests it will be a Labour lead of 300 votes. You cannot bank on that. You cannot bet on that. That's no confident prediction by any stretch. And I'm just checking now to see if I've received any other news. Just to recap, I've had a Reform activist get in touch to say they think they are not going to win it. But that's just an activist. What does an activist know? They can get a vibe, of course, but it's not always a watertight vibe. And then I've had a Labour activist get in touch to say that they're doing as expected in the Cheshire villages. And what they're doing in the Cheshire villages is trying to squeeze those Tory voters into voting for Labour. But not every Tory voter prefers Labour to Reform, and not every Tory voter prefers Reform to Labour. I think it's pretty split. And I want to make this point to you now. The idea of a pact between, I think, Reform and the Conservatives completely toxifies the idea of Reform. Reform styles itself as, a party above and beyond. They're like the Daenerys Targaryen of the political world. They want to break the wheel, don't they? Right? The idea that they're going to get into bed with one of the parties they want to smash up, it's not going to be. It's not going to happen. Lee Ridley, just to answer the question, 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. That's when we should get Runcorn and Helsby. And the first results of the night, well, it's 20 to 11 right now. And to be honest with you, I don't see a council seat coming soon. I'll give it about half an hour to an hour, really. Yeah. Lee Ridley asks, are you going to be on all night? Am I going to be streaming all night? No. I have spreadsheets to open, work to do, things to write. Raoul Duke 333. Who do you predict will win the most seats? Should we go back to the numbers? What do the numbers say? I don't know why I needed that fade there. Who do I think is going to win the most seats? Can you be confident about this forecast? 480 seats for the Conservatives, 334 for Labour, 314 for the Lib Dems, 311 for Reform. You can't be confident about that at all, can you? None of us can be confident. It's an absolute chaos fest. But anyway, right, more questions. Doncaster, please. Yes, I'll get to asked by Donny Reds. I wonder where you're from. Numbnut, English Constitution Party, apparently not on the voting paper in Runcorn. Leon Telford says, on the doorstep in Bath, we targeted Labour likely voters. The results were mixed. Had some people tactically voting for Lib Dem, which was saddening. And let's just remind ourselves of that the result in the west of England. Labour came away with a third of the vote last time round. So look, if you're losing support, you're going to be south of 30%. you're going to be you're in trouble really, and you can't bank on that. But I would put it to you that if you got 28% in such a split field, quids in, you're winning, right? I think, to be honest with you, you need to be losing a lot more. I think Labour's problem is apathy. People staying at home. People saying, I'm disappointed with the party. I'm annoyed with the party, and for good reason. But, you got to turn them out. Campaigns can sometimes be everything, as we might or might not learn in Runcorn and Helsby later tonight. Eki99 asks, are we on the road to more devolution to great areas? Yes, we are. Cheshire is coming. I know East Anglia was on its way. Where else? I can't remember. Do you think the smaller parties will play a deciding factor in the by-election? From Daniel Hussein. Deciding? I think the Greens and Lib Dems could. I did get this from a Labour activist on the ground in Runcorn and Helsby as well, which is that they're struggling, it seems, to squeeze Green voters. So basically, actually, I think we should analyse some of the literature that I have to hand. Let me just see if I can get it up. Could have worded that better. I have two pieces of literature, Labour literature and Reform literature, and these were both used in the by-election in Runcorn and Helsby. And let me see if I can open this in the browser. Can I open it in the browser? No, I can't. Anyway. Reform's strategy is deal Labour a blow. Labour's strategy is stop reform. And which is the more toxic of the two? The Labour government or Nigel Farage? And in Runcorn and Helsby, I would say it's pretty split. 2/3 Runcorn, I think more voters would prefer Nigel Farage to Keir Starmer, but that 1/3 Runcorn, which is the Cheshire villages, affluent Tories who sometimes outvote, well, not outvote, but turn out by a disproportionate amount more than they should, I think maybe they would prefer Keir Starmer to Nigel Farage. Don't know about that, but I think it would be very slim indeed. And so just to get back to the point, Labour's strategy has been to squeeze voters to say, it's us or reform here, do you want Nigel Farage winning? And it seems as though as a message, according to people on the ground, it is working, but whether it will secure them the seat, we don't know. We do not know. Well, we don't know yet. We'll know. I don't have a clock. I have a clock here. We will know in a few hours' time. And you can see it. And let me just see if I can find a way to show you the... I'll show you the photos later. Let me just see if I can get to some of... Morgan asks, do you think reform failing to take Runcorn will overshadow whatever result reform takes in the locals? It could. It all depends on how we cover things and when we cover it. So just to reiterate, the elections that will be up tonight, the seats that are counting tonight, you have Boston, very reform friendly, good news for reform. You have Spalding, which is South Holland, just south of Boston, good news for reform as well. You have Northumberland, where reform will be more of a bit player as opposed to a major force, I think. We'll go to that in a few minutes' time. I think I said that a few minutes ago. So that might muddy the waters slightly. If reform fail to take Runcorn, but do particularly well in a great many county council divisions that have declared overnight, it'll be a mixed bag. Reform are advancing against Tory seats, but they miss out in a Labour seat. There's a narrative for you. It's a very, very tough narrative because Labour, Runcorn and Helsby is like the 49th, 48th safest Labour seat in their arsenal of parliamentarians. It's interesting. Eddie Jones, GB, asks, good evening, Ben. Any mayoral candidates you could see making real waves nationally? Why, Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham, Tracy Brabin, Ben Houchin. Do I see any new candidates? Not yet. Will says, hot take, I think Lib Dems will win the West of England mayoral. They could, and I absolutely say you should not rule out the Lib Dems in the West of England, because Bath votes Lib Dem. You have all the bits from Bath to, what should we stay here? Well, Buckham. Buckham voting Lib Dem. Let me just show you this on a map. So imagine this portion voting Lib Dem, and it does in council elections, okay? And it's really Keynsham in Kingswood and the outskirts of Bristol that votes Labour. And it's Bristol that is very, it's Green or Labour. and it's very much leaning towards the Greens right now. So it's a very split Labour vote. The Labour vote doesn't really have much of a base, so to speak, anymore. It's getting portions in everywhere. It's getting decent shares in everywhere, but not enough to say to build up enough. Meanwhile, the Lib Dems have bases of support in Bath, North East Somerset, Thornbury, Yate, and others. And I wouldn't rule them out. I definitely wouldn't rule them out. But the opinion polls were not saying that. Michael asked, will there be a by-election in North East Somerset? Quite possibly. But I think it will take. I think we need to let investigations. The police let's wait for the police to do their job first before a by-election comes. But anyway, Leon Telford says, I can confirm as Bath Labour that Lib Dems are mighty powerful there. We nearly broke a few councillors off them in the north of Bath, but failed. Very good. Someone says, Andrea Jenkins, could she make waves in the future? We'll leave that. Yeah. Airy Sailor says, why are we acting like Labour holding their 16th safest seat is a success? First of all, Airy, it's not the 16th safest seat. I don't know where this narrative is coming about. It's the 46th. Well, it's in the 40s. Right? If you judge it by raw vote, it's like 49th safest. If you judge it by percentage point majority, it's like the 46th safest. It's not the safest going. It's not the 16th safest. That is a narrative put about by someone who I think just made up some stuff. Content Borks asks, are there any results coming in? No, not yet. We should be expecting results from parts of Northumberland, parts of Lincolnshire, parts of Staffordshire over the course of the evening, but that's within the next half hour to hour. Those are electoral divisions. Runcorn and Helsby, the by-election, the one that we're all keeping an eye on right now, is likely to come between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. and I'm going to be staying up all night for that. How do I stay awake all night? I've just bought a load of coffee and splashed out for it as well. But anyway, AM9776 asks, hi, how important for the narrative after the elections on the projected national share? First of all, I don't like the projected national share. Everyone rushes to it. Sky, the BBC, and it is backed up by a great many academics good in their field, but let me just put this in a map-based form for you here. Okay, so projected national share is doing the equivalent of an exit poll. You go to a few parts of the country, you get the results from a few divisions, you get a little bit of Welwyn Garden City, you get a little bit of Oxford, you get a few divisions in the coast of England, and you add them together and you try and project, this is how the country would have voted nationally. It's not helpful. It's not helpful because the divisions you choose are not always the most accurate ones. 2013, county council elections there. The PNS projected had UKIP on 23%, okay? And the next year, they had UKIP on 14%. What's that? A drop of 9 points. But here's the thing. There was only one portion of the country that was voting in both 2013 and 14. That was a part of Essex called Thurrock, or South Basildon and East Thurrock, around there. And what happened in those seats was nothing changed. So in 2013, UKIP did remarkably well there, and in 2013, UKIP did remarkably well there. So where did that 9-point fall come from? We don't know. We don't know. But I think I put it to you that it's the selection, it's a sampling on the PNS that can be quite problematic. So this is why, unfortunately, I don't trust it. I don't really take much time into it, unfortunately. Anyone else missing Sunak? No. I don't think people are. There was a load of questions. I'm so sorry. Let me see if I can get through them. With so many areas not voting because of reorganisation, does that dilute the narrative to come from tonight? No. There's a void. There's a void to be filled. The media, we've all been psyching ourselves up with this is a midterm election. This is the May local elections. And there's 1,600 of them to come through. Sounds like a big number. Compared to other local elections, it's quite minute. There were 6,000 in 2023 when I was getting elected. It's small fry, and it's a big number. It's a big number. And look, Runcorn and Helsby, we all know how Westminster, how SW1 react to little things like these. A by-election defeat, and I think it's for good reason. But if Reform win Runcorn and Helsby tonight, that is saying to 200 plus Labour MPs, Nigel Farage can win over there. He can win here. That is the fear that will go into a great many Labour MPs if Reform win Runcorn and Helsby tonight. And you know what you're going to see. You're going to see the same thing that backbench Tory MPs did under David Cameron in the face of the UKIP onslaught. We need to go more right wing. We need to offer a referendum in Europe. We should sound tough on immigration and borders. I don't think Labour MPs are going to rush for a referendum on Europe, or if any of them move to a referendum on the ECHR, I think you can see it happening, can't you? What you would see basically is, if you know the factions of the Labour Party, Blue Labour, the socially conservative wing of the Labour movement, would become, I think, the norm at conference season, not the exception. I think this party may, in a reactive kind of way, take a very rightward turn socially, thinking that that is the way to offset reform. I personally completely disagree. That's not the way to do it, but it's the natural reaction, so to speak. Anyway, there was just a heads up on the ESSA team website. It shows the most recent election result as the 2019 election. Thank you very much, ballot box, sotn.newstatesman.com. I don't use anymore. All my results are on the New Statesman page. So yeah. 2 a.m. for major results, I think so. Well, talking heads. Are you sympathetic to any reform policies? I'm not here to talk about my own politics here. BBC are reporting Doncaster will be close. Yes. Now, you've just reminded me. I'm so sorry. So, shall we take ourselves to those council by council forecasts that I spoke about earlier? So, let me just see. First of all, is there what's going on there? Does that work? Yes, that works, I think, but there's still a bit of an issue with the cropping over here. But anyway, it's not the end of the world. Anyway, so let's just remind ourselves of the forecast. Yes, that's the Tories losing more than half their seats. That's Labour somehow making net gains. I'm trusting the data, ladies and gentlemen, rather than putting a finger on it. Lib Dem's up 100, Reform up 300, Greens up a healthy dozen. And let's see how that looks by council. Okay, so, how am I going to do this? Shall we do it like this? Is that good? Yeah, is that good? Are we all seeing that? I think we're all seeing that. So, let's start with Durham. Looks like it could be a wipeout for the Conservatives in Durham, because they got a fifth of the seats last time, just a touch more than a fifth of the seats last time, and it seems that Reform is on course to take near 4 in 10 of the seats up for grabs on Durham, which, by the way, makes them the largest party, but does not give them a majority. Okay. Labour expected to lose, interestingly enough, just 9% of their seats, 9 points worth of their seats. They're on course for a third of the seats in Durham. Health warning there. Put bluntly, the central forecast that I just want to take you back to, this one, big margins for error. Okay? Look, let's just reiterate this. You can't commentate with precision on anything when the most popular party in the country is on 25%. And yet here we are. We're doing that tonight. Anyway, aren't we? So yeah, look at that. Tough. And then Lincolnshire, meanwhile, it seems that the model says the Tories will just about edge ahead of Reform in Lincolnshire, with a big loss in support for the Conservatives. Gloucestershire, the Lib Dems there are going to be in pole position to be the largest party. Note, not with a majority. They could do a deal with the Greens or Labour. Hertfordshire as well. It seems that a progressive alliance, so to speak, would become the largest grouping there. Add in the Lib Dems plus Labour, you get a majority. Kent, look at that as well. You know, last election, Kent, 80%, well, 79% of the divisions, the seats, went to the Conservatives. Now it's looking like 39% with a hefty chunk for Reform. Note as well some Labour gains here. Interesting. I wonder where they're going to come from. Lancashire, both Labour and the Conservatives fall back. Some advances for smaller parties, smaller candidates. That's probably some pro-Gaza independents there in Burnley and Pendle. advance for the Greens as well. It seems though the Lib Dems will be squeezed here, and Reform are in essence holding the balance of power with a third of the seats up. That's interesting. Leicestershire, Tories still largest party, but the Greens, not the Greens, sorry, Lib Dems coming second. Looks like Reform and the Tories could maybe do a deal there. Nottinghamshire, look at this. Look at that. Looks like some Labour advances. Interesting. Yeah, up against 2021. So there are, a lot of Labour MPs here now. Independent candidates look set to be squeezed a bit. Reform taking 44% of the seats up here. Yeah, as Andrew Teal puts it, if these projections are anywhere close to the mark, then coalition negotiations will be absolutely fun. I'm always reminded of the deal agreed for Norfolk in 2013, which was a rainbow coalition of Labour, Lib Dems, Greens and UKIP. UKIP getting into bed with the Greens and Lib Dems and Labour to run Norfolk County Council, to kick the Norfolk Tories out. And it all centred around, I think, an incinerator. An incinerator in Norfolk. Fun things do happen in local politics, don't they? Nottinghamshire, yes. Reform in pole position there to form an administration. Very interesting indeed. Staffordshire, again, look at that. It really is Reform versus the Tories there. Oxfordshire, Lib Dems just close to taking majority control of Oxfordshire County Council. They had a third of the seats last time around. They might get 50% this time. Warwickshire, Tories crashing from not two-thirds, 3/4 of the seats up to just 30%. My God, makes them the largest party, but just with 30%. Worcestershire, not quite as dramatic a drop, 76% to 47% for the Tories. Labour advances here, and note, Labour advances as well. This comes down to the fact there are now Labour MPs, and that there is no doubt a residual Labour vote when compared to 2021. But is it enough to win divisions? Well, the model says yes, but to be honest with you, I'm not as confident as the model, but I've got to publish it, haven't I? Derbyshire, oh my goodness me, look at that. Tories going from, a sweeping majority in Derbyshire in 2021, now on course to just take a fifth of the seats. That is catastrophic for them. And interestingly enough, Labour coming in with a third of the seats compared to Reform's a third and a bit number of seats. Devon, Lib Dems might take this one. Yeah, looks very likely there. Cambridgeshire as well, Lib Dems in pole position to eke out largest party status here. Interestingly enough, it seems though in the more affluent areas, the Tory fall isn't quite so dramatic, really. And note a small Reform presence. Cornwall, bit of a bun fest, that, isn't it? Look at that, 29% share of the seats for the Lib Dems, 22% Reform, 13% Labour, 11% Tories, and 21% for the party whose name I cannot pronounce to save my life. Thank you very much. Doncaster. Where's the Donny lad? Is he still with us? Doncaster, last time round, Labour got 3/4 of the seats. Now, looks like they'll lose their majority, or just keep their majority. Who knows? Reform could come away with 3 in 10 of the seats up. Maybe there's more to come. Wiltshire, a third, a bit for the Lib Dems, 44% for the Tories. Buckinghamshire, I was expecting more for the Lib Dems there. 1/4 of the seats for the Lib Dems, 40% for the Tories. Northamptonshire, a third of the seats for the Tories, down from 81%, but some big increases for Labour here. Much of Northamptonshire is now represented by a Labour MP. There has to be some strength there. They can't be losing seats. They can't be going below 13% of the seats up in parts of the world where they dominate for MPs. All the country really has completely, Labour only down 11 points on 2021. They're down, 8, 9, 10 points on 2024. Surely they should be making some advances here compared to 21. Northumberland, which is due to be counting later this evening. Interesting, sizable Reform portion there. Labour should be the largest party. Is there enough to form a coalition with the progressive parties? Maybe there. Shropshire, big Lib Dem gains. North Shropshire, which I think has next to no Lib Dem councillors right now, could be on course to having quite a fair few. Note the Labour advances. That could come from Shrewsbury or Shrewsbury, depending on how posh you are. Tories down from, almost 2/3 to just a fifth. Good God. And to finish up, West Northamptonshire, 74%, 3/4 of the seats long ago. Now looks like the Tories will lose their majority there. I don't know to what degree I'm going to put, how much truck I'm going to put in a forecast like that, the council by council breakdown, but it's better that you know about it. It's better that you see what we are, so to speak, projecting for you, because look, there's data, a model says something, and I'm going to publish it. Jack Attack says there aren't really any majorities anywhere anymore. Quite. Yeah, and we've had a lot of boundary changes. Just to reiterate, Durham lost a few councillors. Northumberland has had some pretty big ones. Yeah, Donny Reds asked mayor ones now, please. I haven't any projections for mayoral fights, but I will tell you this. What do the polls say? The polls say Reform are likely to win in Lincolnshire or Greater Lincolnshire. It's just Lincolnshire. Just call it Lincolnshire. One poll put them ahead by an eye-watering, what was it, 15 points, something like that. And another poll put them ahead by 3 points. And there is a bit that we've had two pollsters do these mayoral fights, YouGov and More in Common. And the variation is welcomed because I put it to you, I think, that there are some sampling issues here. We had a poll of Runcorn and Helsby by the esteemed Lord Ashcroft, or rather Lord Ashcroft has commissioned someone to do a poll for him, and his sampling was all over the place. So I just want to, should we just go back to a map? Should we just go back to a map again? Runcorn and Helsby, to reiterate, it's 2/3 Runcorn, 1/3 rural Cheshire. But in the Lord Ashcroft poll, there's 1/3 that I mentioned as having many affluent Tories who could vote Labour tactically to keep Reform out. They are 1/3 of the seat, but they made up just 2% of the sample of that poll. 98% came from the most Reform-friendly area, and that poll by Lord Ashcroft gave Reform a heftier lead than that which the Britain Predicts model is saying. So thank you very much to Lord Ashcroft. Do better sampling next time. And it seems to me that the mayoral polls are doing similar. The West of England, for instance, where are you oversampling? Bristol is very green friendly. If you're oversampling in Bristol, then you're skewing the numbers, because you had one poll putting the Greens ahead by 4 and then another putting the Greens behind by 4 or something to that effect. Sort out your samples. Let's make sure the samples are all right there. But in West of England, you had, it could be anyone's guess, I think. In Lincolnshire, it seems though Reform will win the mayoral fight. In Hull and East Yorkshire, Nigel Farage himself is confident that he will win it. One poll does put them ahead in winning it. Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, it seems like the Tories will just about recover that seat, recover that mayoralty from Labour. Doncaster, I think it'll go the same way as the council goes, so maybe Labour ahead, but not by much. What other mayoral fights do we have? I'm forgetting them all, but I think I may have covered them all. So, any other questions? Labour were pretty annoyed with YouGov over prediction as it took samples from Bristol. Ah, yes, you've just reminded me. I got some gossip from the West of England. What was being said to me there? Internet's terrible here. Yeah. What was it? Yes, someone pointed out that the YouGov poll wasn't weighted by area. And I think that makes sense, which I think is a bit of a rookie mistake on YouGov's behalf, because, look, these conurbations are that. They're absolutely, they're ice cream parlours. You've got the Greens in Bristol, you've got the Lib Dems in South Gloucestershire and Bath, and you've got Labour in, well, actually, where are Labour? Don't know, but you get the general gist. It's too split. You've got to get the samples right. I had one, I think, a Labour activist get in touch to say that we are doing a lot more than the Greens, 4 to 5 knocking sessions a day across the region. People are being bussed in from London for polling day. People are being Labour activists are being bussed in from London for polling day in the west of England. They're taking it seriously, it seems. It seems as though Labour are taking the west of England very seriously. Standard postal and on the day get out the vote activity. I think the party are hoping to have this region as their silver lining come Friday. That's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting indeed. Charlie asks, what do you think about the validity of Find Out Now? I voted Reform, but it seems to be too good to be true. Find Out Now, I think they overstate the proportion of people who go Reform. Yeah, it's hard to say right now. We only have council by-elections to rely on. And what the council by-elections show is that the polls are overstating Labour and Reform by the same portion. So that's not helpful, is it, in Runcorn and Helsby? In historical terms, what's the average improvement most main opposition parties expect to get in the first local since an election defeat? Ooh, I don't know right now. I don't know. What's the average improvement? 1980, 81. Labour came back pretty quickly. It was always interesting, the local elections of the early 80s before the SDP split. Labour did quite well in local elections, enough for people to say, you know, on these numbers they should be coming back to power. Falklands, of course, killed that. Look, I think what we all need to know is that what's going to happen is not to His Majesty's most official opposition's favour. The Tories are not going to have a good night tonight. They're going to lose half their seats. I think these were good nights. I think, okay, the seats up were already good for the Conservatives anyway. The last time they were fought, it would have been hard for them to best that result, but it should have been doable to stem any serious losses. But you know what? That's not happening because we have Reform. Anyway, apparently 400 Labour activists in Runcorn today. Yeah, I know about 30 who came from Chester. 30 activists from Chester alone. They turned out for the campaign. And look, yeah, very interesting. Mike W. with a pride flag asks, could these results bring about election reform for all council elections in the future, moving to preferential voting? I think those of us of a slightly more progressive bent, pluralistic bent, would wish that. I think that sort of stuff will only come the moment the next government is formed without a majority. The next time, you know, if Labour get into bed with the Lib Dems supplying confidence or such like, voting reform will be on the table. After all of this, after what we will see tonight, after what we could see over the next few years, the idea, I think, that voting reform doesn't come anytime soon does feel like it's for the birds, you know. Bukes writes in to say from one of his sources, Reform think they are ahead right now in the Runcorn count. That's very interesting. Let's see what we can I corroborate with that with anything? Oh, are we getting that? What is Sky saying? Don't think anyone's saying anything yet, are they? Sophia says, hello Sophia, long time. I think I last saw you at the general election party. I was curious in the Farage interview with Beth Rigby that he was more confident that they would win Hull and Lincolnshire, whereas he didn't feel the same about Runcorn. Interesting. Yeah. And just to corroborate what one of my reform activists was telling me, they think there's a lot of apathy there, and there's too much apathy for them to win. Leon Telford comes in with some gossip. When Uxbridge was going on, Labour had like 1,000 canvassers, which was crazy. Had some knocking rounds on 5 visits. Pretty crazy ground game, even if their comms suck. But they still lost Uxbridge, didn't they? My source, Susan Hall is confident. Yes, confidence doesn't always mean competence, does it? Lord Bolton has a very astute take. Tories are not in a good spot, that's for sure. Very good. Thank you, my Lord Bolton. Are you convinced by the prevailing argument that Labour always underperforms in the locals compared to other parties? First of all, does Labour underperform? Yes, I agree with that. Do they underperform compared to other parties? Ooh, it's hard to say now given Tory apathy. Well, put bluntly, a lot of the Tory vote over the last few decades has been built on what I call steady as she goes type voters. This country is divided between two types of voters. One who are steady as she goes, mortgage owners, those who've got their lot and want to preserve it and shake things up. Those who don't have much and want to shake the system up. Okay. The Liz Truss mini budget, the mortgage the mortgage crash, in which people's monthly outgoings went from 200 to 800 a month. That redundant use of words there. Sent a lot of people of the steady as she goes bent into Labour's hands, but also into apathy, to say that the party that I backed for as long as I have has absolutely turned on me. I'm never voting for them again. That does happen. That is happening right now. And these sorts of people, by the way, aren't reform friendly. And I'll put it to you that they're not turning out anytime soon, or if they are, they might be turning out to help Labour to beat reform in Runcorn. But what that means is that, to agree with your first point, Labour do underperform in local elections, but I put it to you as well, the Tories are probably underperforming as well. So, yeah, interesting. Kim Thomas asks, how's it going? Any feedback on turnout yet? Nope, nothing. Do you reckon Farage being in Runcorn will change your prediction? No. I think wherever Nigel Farage goes, he all credit to him. He puts his neck in a great number of places. The problem with Nigel Farage is that every time it's clear that his party's losing the seat, he often makes a getaway long before the declaration has even been made, often with many aides around him, effing and blinding about who effed up. So what are you hearing about turnout in Runcorn? I'm hearing absolutely nothing right now. I'll put it to you. Turnout is likely to be between 23,000 and 29,000 votes cast in Runcorn and Helsby. 29,000, I think, is perhaps the more reasonable end. And what that implies, so here's what you need to know. By-elections, generally speaking, the turnout drops by the same proportion almost always. Well, not almost always, but roll with me here. So let's say, for example, turnout is 100% in an election. In a by-election, it's likely to be around 50%. Basically, in a by-election, turnout is normally half of what it was in the general election. Okay. In competitive elections, it's very different. It's more like 60%, 70% of the general election turnout. And what it seemed, what we were modelling with Britain Predicts was a turnout that was 60%. As a high point, 60% of the general election turnout, meaning 23 to 29,000 votes cast. What that means is that if our model is right, and that Labour edge reform by a few hundred votes, that is Labour winning with 9,300 and something votes, and reform missing out by 8,900 and something votes. That's nothing. That's such a ridiculous margin. Nothing to be complacent about there. How come we didn't elect in South East London? Asked Rochelle. Because there are no elections to be had in London. The last time you had an election was 2022 for your mayoral fight and your assembly and your councils. No, you didn't. It was no, I do apologise. You had the London council elections in 2022, and you're going to be having those elections again in next year, in 2026. Labour's vote is very efficiently spread around now compared to under Corbyn. Is this factored into seat expectation tonight? Yes. The model that gave you the forecast that I just showed you, which saw Labour. Let's go back to these numbers again. Where are they? Let's F the fade. We don't need to do the fade. These numbers are predicated off where Labour's strength is now. Labour's strength is very efficiently concentrated in certain parts of the country, such as Wellingborough, Tamworth, and so on and so forth. You would assume where that strength was in 2024, it would stay that way now. It hasn't in council by-elections. It hasn't at all in council by-elections. But it's tough. What else can you go off? Well, I'm going off the general election. I'm going off the concentrations based on general election in the model. Zia Youssef said on Newsnight they're lucky to even be in the running in reform. Sounds like the expectations management game is getting off to a Wonderful start. What else we got here? What does that mean? Very efficiently spread. Basically, hello workers to unite. You know, how can I describe it? I can't describe it. It's basically votes concentrated in areas they can win. So if you concentrate them in within one seat, you've won the seat, haven't you? But if it's so spread around, you know, if you're a party polling 10% of the country right now and you get 10% in every seat, where's the efficiency in that? It's terrible. But if you poll 10% and get like 50% in a fair few seats, that's efficiency, isn't it? London should succeed. I think a lot of Northerners would agree with that. Can you talk about North Tyneside? No. What can I say about North Tyneside? There's a mayoral fight. I can talk about South Tyneside. South Tyneside had the Labour councillors there lost a lot of their seats last year and the year before, I think. A lot of it had to do with the Greens and Independents scored some surprising wins there. I don't know if will that translate into North Tyneside. North Tyneside has a sizable Tory vote, or had a sizable Tory vote. Interesting stuff there. Will I be streaming in the middle of the night, early morning? I will be streaming in the morning. I've got a calendar of things I need to do in the morning, actually. I have to do LBC at 7, so I'm going to stream at 7:30 tomorrow morning. And then I have the NS podcast. I'm recording the New Statesman podcast at 11. So I can't wait to get some sleep. Can't wait. Anyway, all those born in London should be able to vote for London Mayor. It's our capital city. Okay, lovely, lovely opinion. If Labour do not switch up the plan, whatever that currently might be, they're cooked. Do you know what stage the Runcorn by-election is on? Are they still on verification? Yes. They're still getting all the votes in. They are... Well, it's an hour and a bit in now. I think all ballot boxes might be in, even from the Chester villages. Yeah. Anyway, I think we should just not draw this to a close per se, but we should just quickly summarise and then draw it to a close. So the Britain Elect's forecast says this: the Conservatives are on course to lose more than half the seats up tonight because of their dramatic fall from grace since 2021 and their non-existent recovery. That might gift Labour some advances. A lot of these parts of Shire England are now represented by Labour MPs. If those Labour MPs fancy their chances of lasting more than one term, they need some council seat wins in their patch. The model suggests it might be happening. The Lib Dems are on course to pick up 100 seats to 314. The Reform are on course to come from nowhere to take 300 seats, and the Greens to come with 56. Look at this. Who is the winner of these council seat contests? No one is. No one has a decent portion of this. And when you look at what's up, this map is about to get very much less blue, isn't it? You're going to see something a bit like Oxfordshire over here, where you have Oxford proper. It's quite an ugly map at times, isn't it? You have Oxford proper being very Labour, the outskirts being very Lib Dem. If you trace can you trace a transport here? Yeah, if you follow the train tracks. Yeah, isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Yeah, you could tell I was a train spotter as a kid. Anyway, yeah. Oh, I've just completely lost my train of thought now. But yeah, you're going to see a lot more Oxfordshires compared to the blue that was blue of Staffordshire, Lincolnshire, Derbyshire, and where else was incredibly, and West Northamptonshire. Okay, Wellingborough. This has a Labour MP now. What's going to happen there? It's going to be very interesting. And the worst thing is, these are new boundaries. We can't compare to previous elections. You go to Lancashire, though. Yes. Seats, you can work it out. Parts of Accrington here. This is going to be very interesting. What's going to happen here? Here in Burnley, I think Burnley North East, Briarfield, Nelson West, Derry, Muslim-heavy areas. Are we going to see pro-Gaza independents do very well here? Don't know. Don't know yet. Don't know, but it could be very interesting indeed. What about Lancaster? The Greens like to win on the outskirts of Lancaster over here. Are they going to win Lancaster proper? Are they going to take the castle? Wait a minute, where is the castle? The castle's over here, isn't it? Are they going to take... I like Lancaster. I like going to Lancaster. Is Labour in trouble in Lancaster, basically? I remember speaking to an organiser who, Labour organiser, did manage things in Lancaster not so very long ago, and his summary to me, although he was very drunk, was they are absolutely stuffed in Lancaster. But anyway, so, Ooh, that's interesting. Just seen a town council election result. A Reform gain. A Reform gain from who? An independent? Ooh. Not Lancaster, sorry, a Sandbach. Sandbach, which is in Cheshire. That's interesting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to bring this to a close. What you need to know is that it's going to be a very poor night for the Conservatives. Reform are going to come from nowhere in a great many parts of the country, all because of this. The most popular party right now is on 25%. The second most popular is on 24%. The third is 22%. Chaos. Chaos. Chaos has come. Chaos has absolutely come to this country in the elections to be had now. So, let's get to it. I will be back at 7:30 Friday morning to give you a brief rundown of what happened. You can find that on YouTube. You'll be able to find that on YouTube. You'll be able to find that on Twitter. It's going to be very exciting. It's going to be very interesting. British politics, first past the post, is not ready for this level of public, this level of splitting by the public in terms of their party preference. Our system will not cope. Our system will see parties elected with less than 30% of the vote, where the difference between first and fifth could be as little as a few dozen votes. That is what we are about to see. I've been Ben Walker. This is Britain Elects. I will see you on the other side. If you want to follow the results, you can do so on Twitter. Of course, Britain Elects will be doing its usual stuff, and you'll be able to find the live ward-by-ward results map on the New Statesman website. If you go onto our Substack, please do subscribe, BritainElects.com. There is also some exclusive data for you there if you are a paid subscriber. Have a think about that. All right. But I'll leave you with this. Well, I've already left you with it. Chaos is coming. That's about it. I hope you have a good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the morning. Goodbye.